Oh, hello there. Yes, well, not long now before Nigel Farage takes over. Hooray! Yes, indeed, that was the obviously big news this weekend, is that he, who has come amongst us to save us, unfortunately has upset the elites, and therefore they've decided to, from a long time ago, put all their plots into place, and he mustn't be possibly called a racist, even though he might well be, but he's not. Definitely. Yes. There is a real tendency on I'm going to say the right, generically. It happens on the left as well, but it's predominantly on the right, of people that exist within their own particular bubble. And then whenever any sense of reality seeps through, they instantaneously see a nefarious plot. And you know it's a nefarious plot because there's no evidence. It just proves it's a plot, you see? Anyway, of course, we mustn't call Mr. Farage and his wonderful supporters anything other than wonderful. So consequently, he actually put this up, which I thought was really quite astounding. I've just been invited to appear on Laura Kunsberg. I'm refusing until the BBC apologises for their dishonest QT audience. Our state broadcaster has behaved like a political actor throughout this election. Reform will be campaigning vigorously to abolish the licence fee. OK, then mate, good luck with that. But there is an element, of course, of toys out the pram there. Yeah? For once you actually go in front of a group of people and they ask all of those questions that ordinary people would want to ask you, and you don't really have an answer for them, and therefore you're entitled to get cross, and your supporters are entitled to scream blue murder that the rules need to be changed, because how dare we question our Lord Messiah, who does exist, thankfully, amongst us. Yes, and this is a very common thing. I remember when Trump was trying to be re-elected, and if you watched like Fox News and some of the other right-wing outlets, those kind of uber quasi-fascist outlets in the States, during that election, it was really odd because they talked themselves into this circular argument whereby they only persuaded themselves that Trump was going to win, no matter what, okay? And therefore, when he didn't win, it simply could not be real, because for months, if not years, they had been in this circle whereby any dissenting information had to be dismissed as a plot by the inevitable elites, something which I believe I'm now part of, or something. Yeah, and in the UK, I think we can really see this, because there's a kind of clutching at straws element of the Reform Party, because the Conservative Party has gone down the Swanee, naturally, for blindingly obvious reasons, which nobody disagrees with. But luckily, you see, we've got Reform on the back burner, and we can just bring them forwards, and they are just basically the Conservatives. They're basically Liz Truss, but with Nigel Farage instead, with a more kind of overtly populist, if I can be as gentle as that about it, face to them. And yesterday I watched the New Culture Forum with, hi, I'm Peter Whittle, and Rafe, and Christian nurse lady, who's definitely getting a lot of coverage for, well, being Christian and losing deposits, no doubt. But they'd managed to buy into this notion that Reform are this kind of political landslide that's going to sweep everything before it. And they've also bought into this idea that loads of young people are being attracted to Reform. And the problem with that, of course, is that they're not, okay? If we look at some of the most recent polls, okay, this is the most recent one I could find. 18 to 24-year-olds. Who are they going to vote for? Well, who they're going to vote for predominantly is Labour. Reform end up on 12%, the Tories on 5%, and there's a handful of others, which will be like SNP, etc. So, in other words, yes, quite a few young people are voting for Reform. Is it a major breakthrough? Are the kids out there on TikTok really connecting with Nige? No. Because, and this is the whole, oh my god, I'm going to bring in some facts here. If we look back to the 2019 election and see what 18 to 24-year-olds were doing for that, well, we've got a slither for the Brexit Party and a chunk for the Conservatives. Now, if we put together our current voting intentions for young people. Let's look at that again. So we've got the Tories on 5 and Reform on 12. Now, through the magic of mathematics, that is 17%. So they are actually right-wing parties, which are basically the Tories, are actually doing worse amongst 18 to 24-year-olds than they were 5 years ago. Kel Surprise, one might say nobody. But in that kind of right-wing talk show host attitudes that they all have, of course, this isn't reality. So, we end up with these very odd notions about, Nige can really drag a crowd out. Well, yes, he can, okay? This is him in Devon from a few days ago. Yes, he can drag a crowd out, but it's during the day, and the people who turn up are predominantly retired, okay? I will just show you the same photograph here from a slightly different angle, okay? There are a smattering of people under 50 in that audience, and I will say smattering, but I would say to you, where are these young people? Anyone under 30, realistically, under 25 that you can spot there? There won't be anyone, okay? Now, if Nigel Farage rocks up anywhere in the middle of the day with a few hours' notice, he will get this crowd, which is retired white people, because that's Reform voters. It isn't magically inspired 18-year-olds. That ain't it, okay? Now, again, this is being presented, and Peter Whittle and the New Culture Forum, the three of them were doing this with this, I've never seen anything like that before. And if we think back as well to the recent past, I'm sure that you can't think of anything like it either. For example, here's a very, very, you can see the paltry cloud that Jeremy Corbyn was dragging out, and you can see almost everybody there is a mixed crowd of loads of sort of youngish people. But don't let reality get in the way is, I think, the key argument with this particular one. Yeah, and again this weekend there was that undoubted right wing kind of sneer to a lot of things about young people. They wonder why the young won't vote right. Okay, and they can invent ideas in their heads that magically Nige is popular with young males. Yeah, only the ones that were going to vote Tory anyway. So we have Chris Rose, who's an interesting character if you want to look him up, one of those token people for the right wing. Anyway, one of the most cringe, out of touch and middle class things I've seen at Glastonbury: crowd surfing a lifeboat representing illegal migrants. Being open borders at a music festival which has a gigantic fence and very high security, so edgy. Yeah, Chris, a bit like you, mate. However, of course, what these people don't really understand, and they can never understand about young people, is when somebody is just laughing at them. Okay? Now, Chris, this is you being laughed at, mate. This is you being the butt of the joke. And of course, like all of the rest of them, your Peter Whittles and your Nigel Farage, they don't get it. Okay? And they don't get it because when they were that age, they were prematurely middle-aged. They were already stockbrokers by the time they were 14 and a half. You're being laughed at. And there won't be a youth-quake breakthrough with Reform. And we will see. I mean, if Nigel Farage decides he doesn't want to put himself under any media scrutiny, that's entirely his choice. But it does speak volumes about the contempt with which he holds the electorate, and to make up spurious stories which will only appeal to the most rabid, most base, one might say, of the instincts of their supporters is just a bit cheap, I think, at best. Nige baby, as I say, don't really understand when you're the butt of the joke. It must be painful to have reached my age and not to have acquired a sense of humour. Anyway, do have a lovely Sunday. It's going to be a bit sort of grey today. Still, Pussycat will be happier. It's been a bit too warm for him. Enjoy.